time doing this where we take one of the best games in Vinton County basketball history and bring on some former players and talk about it, break it down a little bit. Today I'm joined by two former players, Ryan Kent and Chris Neal, and former coach Chris Eldridge. Guys, welcome. Glad you could join us. Looks like you guys are all seeing the same barber here during this COVID crisis. But maybe I'm just jealous because I can't make it happen. But hey, Ryan and Chris, I'll give you guys a chance first to tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now, just career-wise. Ryan, graduate of Vinton County in 2004. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with you.
Well, me and my wife Samantha, we've got two girls, a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. 4-year-old is Olivia, and 1-year-old is Nora. We live in Arvada, Colorado. We've been here for about 4 years. I'm working with the Bureau of Reclamation. Do a lot of bridges, bridge design, dam design, structural engineering is what my career is. Before moving here, we spent about 7 years in New Orleans before kids, so it was a lot more fun down there.
But yeah, I can remember because I visited, and you introduced me to Bourbon Street, which we'll just leave that alone. But also hamburgers with peanut butter on them. That was that put a few pounds on me over the last decade. I appreciate that. But
at Yo Mama's, that was the name of the restaurant.
It was.
He did the same thing to me when I came down there. So
yeah, you eat real well down there. And you can have a few drinks if you choose to as well.
Yes.
But yeah, we had Olivia and then moved up here to, settle down a little bit and get back into doing stuff outdoors. I do a lot of climbing and camping, backpacking, stuff like that. Not so much basketball anymore. I think I've played basketball 2 times in the last 2 years. And each time my repaired knee has swollen so much I could barely walk around the next day. And yeah. I need to get some work done on. I need to get some work done on that if I want to get back into it.
Yeah, I hear that. It's not going. I wish I could tell you it's going to get better, but it's not, man. It's going to get worse.
Yeah.
Neal, what have you been up to, man?
So I live in Canal Winchester, just outside of Columbus. I work for Columbia Gas. As of July, I've been there 6 years. I work in the new business department, so I kind of a middleman of getting everything set up for customers as far as getting new gas service and such there. I live, I don't have any kids. I'm with my pup. That's about all, Storm, and that's about what I do.
Why is
Hey.
that, though?
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Coach Eldridge, hey, no one really cares about what you and I are doing, plus most people know. But so I'll ask you this though: you, in all honesty, back and I was thinking about this the other day. Back in 2000, when I came to Vinton County, you were one of the first people I talked to. A mutual friend of ours. I mean, we kind of knew of each other from high school or whatever, but one of our mutual friends kind of hooked us up, and he said, Chris has been coaching junior high down there at Vinton County, and you ought to call and ask about this job. And I'll never forget the first conversation we had on the phone, because you basically told me, listen, there's a lot of talent coming. I've coached these kids, and you were talking about the 2004 class that had Ryan and some of the other guys we're going to talk about tonight, and then the 2005 class, which was Chris's. You had coached both of these groups, and you were pretty much the one that told me I was crazy if I didn't want to coach these guys because it was going to be a good team. So you obviously saw this coming.
Well, I coached both those groups in 7th grade, and even I went undefeated coaching them until we got in tournaments, and then I lost tournament games. But I figured if I could take both those groups undefeated, they had a lot of talent.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty easy to see when I got there that these two groups back to back were going to be something to build around for sure. All right, so as the players get announced here, I want to talk a little bit about just kind of leading up to this game, guys. We had this atmosphere was just unbelievable on this particular night, if you remember now. Especially, this was the first time we'd ever seen anything like this in our new gym. This was really our first championship caliber game. Since then we've had a few crazy ones. Chris Neal can know as a coach, we had some 2017 with Alexander and some crazy crowds. But at the time, this was something just unbelievable to be a part of. We were, playing for a league championship. The year before, we were just short with kind of a questionable ending over at Wellston, cost us a league championship in 2003. What's that?
Slightly questionable. We got robbed there.
And so now here we are a year later trying to get this done. This season had led up. If you guys remember, the Alexander thing was weird. We had a couple cancellations, which ended up putting this game at the end of the season. So this was a really cool, literally like a championship level game right at the end of the season. This is our senior night. You start looking at the players in this game. Excuse me. We're going to talk a little bit about a couple Alexander guys that were very talented, but you look at just on our team alone, Vinton County Hall of Famers, Ryan, Chris, Neal, Chris Bethel, Oosley, Powell, 5 of our top 8 guys are in the Hall of Fame at our school right now. So this was quite a group, and really a group that I think sort of paved the way for the success we've had, over the next 15, 16 years or whatever since this time. But it had to be exciting being a part of kind of that first group, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very exciting. And like you said, we had 2 good classes, my class and Ryan's class, and it was a great night.
We always started, I got to watching this game. If you remember, we always started with this little flex set that you're going to see right here where Dixon hits his first shot. And this wouldn't be the last one. This kid hit on this particular night.
He hit a lot more too.
Yeah, he did.
Talk a little bit. I'll go with Ryan Kent and Chris Eldridge here, just because Kenny was in your class and Chris, you coached him up through. Ryan, talk a little bit about Dixon, just overall as a player and as a teammate. If you remember, as a junior, he broke his hand. He was having a good season, kind of broke his hand, never really got back to the same guy, and then really turned it on his senior year, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He made my job really easy. When he was feeling it like he was in this game, it was bring the ball up the court and try to get it to him on a pick or something like that. He was unselfish, but if he had the shot, he was taking it, and no one lacked any confidence in him. It was really easy to play with him.
Yeah. Chris, you probably saw that coming up through really in junior high. I know you told me, if I remember right, you told me he was maybe a little bit of a late bloomer. He was a good player in junior high, but then he really physically sort of matured into himself in high school.
Yeah, I thought the difference between his sophomore and junior year, he grew leaps and bounds. I still think if he hadn't hurt his hand his junior year, we wouldn't have league going away that year. But that really set us back when he hurt his hand, couldn't shoot as well. But as a senior, with him and Kent, they were such good leaders. I don't know. That was by far the best team I've ever coached. And heck, we coached a team that went undefeated years later, but nothing against those guys, but I would take this team right here over them any day.
Well, you talk about Dixon. I would probably agree with that. Top to bottom, this team had a lot of talent. You're talking about, the players on this floor right now, like I said, on both sides are really, really talented. This team here reminds me a lot of the 2017 team we had, which Coach Neal's real familiar with that group,
yeah.
where you had a solid post player and a bunch of really good guards to go around them. It's a guard-driven game, and these guards definitely made us go. I agree with you on Dixon too. I think his junior year, 2003, we were never the same after he came back from that injury, because he was playing so well up to that point. And I think he came back, and I think it was Alexander actually, wasn't it, that beat us at our place?
Yeah, we were up like 15-0 that game.
Yeah,
And, they ended up beating us. Was it in overtime, or it was real close? I think.
I think it might have been.
These young guys made it better than us.
So Dixon pulls up right here in transition, just without a pass, just pulls up and busts like a 22-footer. At that point, he's feeling it. They call a timeout.
He's feeling it. You just get out of his way.
Yeah, there's no doubt. We'll talk about Bethel later. When Dixon and Bethel were feeling it, the shots were going up. I can promise you, when those two guys were. But
Chris was feeling it when he wasn't feeling it sometimes.
yeah. Well, this leads to, and we'll see this as we go, one of the most incredible quarters of offensive basketball I have ever coached in 20 years. I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but the score at the end of the first quarter of this game was 31-21. Okay.
That's right.
So you're getting ready to see like an offensive explosion. It's 9-3 early us, and both teams come out.
Big Hale was dropping everything he threw up. He put a couple in my eye.
Yeah.
One might be right here. Yeah, it was impressive. It's back and forth. Everything we threw up went in. And it seemed like it was someone different there for us anyways. It was Dixon for a while, and then Bethel would get involved, and then it just, transitioned.
On that play right there where they scored at the basket and Chris Bethel got called for a foul, and you sort of came over there and got on him a little bit. When I watched that, it reminded me, this team was such a player-led team. You guys were not afraid at all to lead and be leaders if that was your role. And that was definitely your role, Ryan. And, like right there, just a few seconds ago, you kind of grabbed a hold of Chris Bethel and said, come on, man, and, obviously – I don't think any of you guys wanted a piece of him and a scrap or whatever, but he knew that you were the leader of that team. You knew you were the leader of that team, and you weren't afraid to say something to him. It's funny. I just watched, The Last Dance with the Bulls, and those guys were brutally honest with each other. This team was a little like that, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. This
Absolutely.
team, there was a lot of it was never arguing, but there was some scolding going on the court from time to time. And it wasn't always me. Sometimes after you brought this up, I watched another game, and Ousley got on me for not giving him a pass when he was wide open. So it was
Right.
it went both ways, and it was everyone just being responsible for what they were supposed to be doing and keeping everyone honest.
Yeah, I think we all respected each other and each other's opinions, and it didn't matter whoever got into whoever. We was like, okay, we'll do better.
Yep. And it was over right at that point.
Yep.
Well, that was the great thing about it. You guys had a respect for each other off the court to where, you didn't hold grudges. You didn't take it with you. So in the last couple minutes here, this game started to pick up offensively. Jake Hale hit 2 deep threes. Chris there, after missing a couple shots, Chris Bethel, he went to the hole and got an easy one. And you're starting to see the offense take off a little bit. I believe here, Ousley has looks like a pretty good block. It's called for a foul there.
Right.
I'll ask Neal, because you guys were in the same grade, but talk a little bit about Ousley. Obviously Josh was a super athlete. Brought a lot to the table for us. You're going to see in the second quarter, Ryan got in some foul trouble. He had to come out and run the point. So Ousley's so versatile. He's playing inside. He comes out and runs the point whenever Ryan's not in. Obviously one of the better athletes probably in your grade, Chris. Just talk a little bit about what Josh brought to the team.
Anything he needed, really. He southpaw, so threw off everyone in every sport, really. But he, if we needed him to bring the ball up, he could do it. If we needed him to get into the bucket and box out and get rebounds, he could jump. And he's just a nice, versatile player to have on your team.
He couldn't shoot.
Now the next, his junior high coach never taught him to, is what I heard. Now, hey, these two trips right here. So Bethel hits the step back 3. So you're like, that's good. So then Jake Hale comes down.
That's one of those shots where
dribbles
you're
around,
like,
spins around, and then he comes and shoots a fadeaway 25-footer.
Yeah.
Those two possessions right there pretty much tell you all you need to know about this game. Neal's going to come in here in a minute, and I know you were licking your chops to get an opportunity to guard Jake. You come in and honestly, have probably one of the better defensive games I've ever had a player have, top to bottom, considering there's Dixon again, what Jake was doing prior to you coming in and after. Of course, Neal, you have a history with Jake Hale. I mean, you're in the same family, right? You guys are cousins? Is that correct?
We're cousins. That's correct. Yep, first cousins.
So, Chris, you and Jake obviously, had a history in the same family, whatever, probably played a lot together. Obviously, he went on to be, have a great career as a pitcher at Ohio State, played professionally. I can remember you used to bring him into open gyms later on to play against our guys, and he was quite a load at about age 28, coming in there, tearing the rim off. But, he had been – I know there was a history with all of you guys because he had went to Vinton County up through and then had left to go over to Alexander. But so there was always probably a little bit of a rivalry anytime that happens. But I know with you guys –
junior high.
Yeah.
He was with Kent Dixon. I mean, I had Kent Dixon, Jake Hale. I think how loaded that team was.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's no doubt. I mean,
ninth guy.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about Kyle later and how far he came along. But, obviously you had Jake with that group. Well, then – but, Chris, you've come into the game here. You're going to guard him, try to slow him down a little bit. And like I said, you end up having a big game defensively. But, no matter how much you like somebody or somebody's in your family, you're looking to get the best of him, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's so funny. We actually talk about it all the time. When we start reminiscing about sports, we talk about the games in which, I would be guarding him and stuff. And it's, funny that I'm like 5'10" and he's 6'7", and I'm the one guarding him down the floor every time. And I don't know. I enjoyed it. So I definitely wanted to win every time we stepped on the floor, but it's still something we laugh about all to today.
Well, here you are picking him up full court, and I think this is the first big defensive play you got. If I remember here, I think he calls a turnover. You get a deflection here on a backdoor cut, and it kind of gets a double tip, and we get – oh, no, they call a foul on him there. So not only he calls a turnover, you get a big foul on him.
Yeah.
This team here was built really, I thought, in terms of on the floor, they were really built around toughness plays. I think that you guys really prided yourself on whether it's – and you're going to see a couple things here in a second, whether it be taking a charge, diving for a loose ball. Defensively, I look back at this team, and I think fundamentally, defensively, we were good. I don't know if we were great fundamentally, but I think we ended up being great defensively just on effort and some of those effort plays that we made. Like right here, you're going to see Greg Powell get a rebound, miss a
demolish
shot.
someone.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he should have got called for a charge probably. He gets an offensive foul call after that. But
things would get chippy because, that's how we played was all out. And sometimes it was never dirty, but sometimes people would take it as dirty and things would get chippy from time to time. And that's just how we played.
Well, like right here in just a second, you're going to see Ryan, I think you hit a three, and then, coming right back down the floor, you dive for a ball and end up going into the stands, so that was just the type of effort that we had. But, we brought, if you remember, Coach Nicholson came on the staff that year. He kind of started working with the defense a little bit. I thought, he helped bring some fundamentals to it. And then I think ultimately, though, you guys as a group just basically said, you know what, we're going to play a style almost like you hit and expect to be hit. It's like you guys, I watch you guys, and you guys never got mad when somebody knocked you down. We hardly ever got into a fight. I mean, it was just like we practiced that way, so you almost expected it.
Yeah, it was a mixture between basketball and football sometimes. It was just very fiery.
Yes.
Kind of like Nicholson.
Yeah. Now, here in a second, when we come back down, you got to watch my reaction when Kent tries to take a charge right here. Oh. Dixon hits another three. I thought this was a textbook charge, and I lose my mind over there. So here I come running down. I noticed that. I was like,
I've seen that before.
I mean, I know there's more than one time I look like an idiot, but Christmas, that was one right there.
Now, do you remember when he was a junior, it seemed like he was in foul trouble every game because he had such an attitude?
No, it was a lot of games this year too. Neal loved it. I mean, he got.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's just like
I was like, oh no, Combs, I think that was a block too.
Neal was sitting over there telling the ref to call foul on you so you get more PT. You know,
That's right.
Watch 24 out there, ref. He's fouling. But so here's the last play of the quarter. We're up 28-21. Actually, we put Ryan back in here so we can run a set. We end up running high for Brian, and he hits another three. And I can't remember if that was his fourth or his fifth. This is the easy part
I was telling you about. This is why he made it easy.
Yeah.
All I'm doing is dribbling it. And here you go.
And I can't remember if it was number 4 or 5 for him in the quarter. He comes out and hits another one right off the bat in the second quarter. So 31-21, like I said, at the end of the first quarter. I mean, I've unfortunately coached in games where both teams' final score was in the 30s. So, this was 52 points in a quarter of basketball. I mean, that's just basically crazy. Talking about this team a little bit during this break right here. You guys, we started the season kind of, I don't want to say rough. I mean, we were 4-3 at one point. We had lost at Belpre, which seemed like a yearly occurrence there at first for a while. And we had lost a tough home game and to go 4-3. And then
light bulb.
Yeah, that might be the best way to say it because it did kind of click something in us. I think that after that, I can remember the team meeting we had over at the old high school. Guys spoke up. Again, this was such a player-led team, and after that, we won our next 13 regular season games. This would end up being our 12th straight win, and we ended up winning on the road at Nelsonville in game 20 for our 13th straight win. But I think there was a lot of expectations on you guys coming into the season. I don't know whether we just didn't handle that pressure early or what it was, but rough. We had a little bit of a rough start, didn't we?
Yeah, it might have been a combination of the expectations, and then it might have been a little bit just kind of laid back, and we knew we were good. I mean, every one of us had been winning since elementary school, so we knew we were good. And I really think that playing at home against Leesburg, this team that was average at best, they beat us and at home, and I think it woke us up and said, hey, if we actually want to make this season memorable, we're going to have to compete and not just show up.
Yeah,
right.
That loss actually brought our most memorable practice, I think.
Oh God! And the dirty jerseys.
But we still have 2 quarters left to play.
I don't know what possessed me to do that, but I guess hindsight 2020. You guys, well, Neal knows it, but Kent would be disgusted if he saw me now. He would call me soft now compared to, I guess, what I was back then. That the fan reaction right there was priceless on Dixon's 3, by the way. She stood up like probably felt the same way Coach Gabriel felt. Like you might want to guard him when he's hitting 5 or 6 threes right here in the first half. We've seen Kyle Seymour last couple trips here, in all honesty, grab a rebound, make a couple things happen defensively. Since Seymour was by far Chris Eldridge's favorite player of all time, I'll let Chris talk a little bit about him. But in all honesty, you said, Chris, he was like 9th man in junior high, and look how far he came in a period of just a couple years.
Yeah, he worked really hard to get stronger between his junior and senior year. I remember going in there and lifting weights with him after school every day in the spring of his junior year. And he did a lot of things nobody else was willing to do. He had Bethel, who was twice as strong as Seymour, but Bethel grabbed about 4 rebounds a game if he was lucky. And but that's a shot at Bethel. But Bethel was more of a scorer and star, but Seymour did the dirty work that nobody ever noticed. I remember one game you took him out. I can't remember. It was against one of those Columbus teams. It was it Wellington maybe? You took him out.
Well, we played Wellington that year.
It was at home, and I was on you to put him back in since about 3 seconds after you took him out so much. Finally, you put him back in just so I would shut up. If you said there, would you shut up?
If I took him out of the game, man, I swear, Kyle could have laid down in the middle of the floor, took a nap, got up, you know, I mean, and Eldridge would be like, "Hey, cut the kid a break, man. He's tired. He's been playing hard." You know, I mean, he was definitely. But you know, Eldridge did coach the post guys, so you know. And let's face it, being a post guy on this team, you didn't get a lot of touches because you guys were always shooting the ball.
Offensive rebounds.
Right there he is. Right there's Kyle as we speak,
Yep.
getting a
I
turnaround,
can't believe
moving the
he actually
lane.
got a pass in there.
Yeah, no, he liked when I was in the game because I'd actually throw it down in there to him because you know I wasn't shooting it.
Oh gosh.
The rest of us are like, clear it out, clear it out.
Yeah, but look who he was in there with. He was in there with Dixon and Kent and Neal and Bethel, and none of them were going to grab a rebound. I mean, if we didn't have him in the game, we just didn't have that at
Yeah,
all.
Kyle was. That's what Kyle did. It was kind of like his personality. He was quiet, but you didn't want to make him mad. That's what he did. Is he just did the dirty work. That kept possessions alive, even if it's just kind of roughing his way in there and keeping a finger on it to keep it alive or something like that. He was great. He was the perfect big man for this offense.
No doubt.
Team.
Speaking of big man, there's Neal trying to make a power move on the block.
I thought I had it.
Now, he had a great defensive game, but he's got to work on the inside power move there a little bit. But he really was. Seymour really was the perfect guy for this group because he wasn't a kid that was going to whine around about how many touches he got. He scored a lot of his points. I mean, I got to look and he averaged like 9 points a game for this team. And got a lot of those off offensive rebounds. I mean, he obviously, I don't have it in front of me, but shot a high percentage. Now, this little stretch here in the second quarter was interesting to me because I didn't remember, Ryan, you being in foul trouble, but you were, right, in this game?
Yeah.
I didn't remember that either.
I sat most of this quarter. And actually, when I was watching it last night, I looked at the score right before I went out. They showed the scoreboard. And I think we went up an additional 6 or 8 points after, I set most of the second quarter, and we were up even more points. So that just shows you the depth we had on the team.
Yeah, I mean, it was, and it wasn't pretty at times because, when you were out, we had a little more trouble running sets. Things didn't run as smoothly, but you're right. I mean, and matter of fact, here in a couple minutes, they cut the lead to 9, and it looks like, okay, they're trying to make a little run, but I do think the role players on this team were big. I mean, you talk, obviously, we've talked a little bit about you, Chris, in this game because you came in defensively and played a big role. But guys like Jordy Brooks and Greg Powell, those guys, I mean, how many teams had guys that good playing the 7th and 8th man on the team or in the rotation?
Right. I mean, I think Powell, even the next year, he's probably the 3rd highest scorer on our team his senior year, and he came off the bench, for us.
Powell, Powell was really strong.
Brooks and Powell were on any other team in the league, they would have been starters, probably playing all the time, never coming out.
Right. And that gave us, like you just mentioned, depth, Ryan. I mean, that was big on this team. We were able to I guess withstand occasional foul trouble from somebody.
Yeah, and we were able to keep everything up tempo the way we like to. If we didn't have depth, we wouldn't be able to run up and down the court like we like to do on offense as nearly as much.
Yeah, so like I said, I think here, if I remember right, we miss a shot. They come down, or no, we turn it over. They come down and score, and I want to say maybe cut it to 11 there. And I think they end up cutting it to 9 and have chances to get it further, but after this timeout. But the one thing that jumped out at me about these guys, about this team, as I thought back about them getting ready, just preparing for this show, was the overall composure of this group. I mean, when I watch your guys' body language, I can't tell if we're winning, if we're losing, if things are great, because we don't get crazy excited about good plays. I mean, there's a little bit of nice job or whatever. Yeah, but we never hang our head. There's never ripping your jersey out of and just going crazy. I mean, you just don't have that. I mean, the composure of this team. I don't know whether that was just your guys' personalities, you think, or because I don't know. I don't know what caused that, but I thought it was big for us.
I feel that, just as a group, we just knew when we went out there, we typically come out with a W. And I think that, no matter what happened during the game, one small thing doesn't, lead to other things. We just got to, next play, get back out there, and it'll eventually turn out the right way for us.
Now, we had some guys that showed more emotion than others. Like Ousley never showed any emotion whatsoever. And Dixon was the same way. He was even keel. Now, Kent and Neal, they showed more emotion than those guys. Powell would show some emotion sometimes.
It was, it was more of a quick spurt. It was you able to, I got my second foul. I went over there and I punched the seat and then sat down. Like I was mad, but a couple minutes later it was gone.
Yeah.
So it's it's being able to flip that switch.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good combination. When I listen to you guys talk, that's what I'm reminded of is, a good team's made up of a lot of different personalities. You don't want all of real emotional guys, but you don't want all guys that are flatline either. Because then you got to have a little bit of somebody to stir things up a little bit. But this team was just almost like a perfect combination of personalities, really. That just blended really well.
Yeah, some people don't respond well when you get on them, and you got to know that you can't continue to harp on it, beat on them, everything over and over again because you're dunk it, Ousley. Come on.
Yeah.
Did he ever dunk one his senior year either?
Did he have a dunk his senior year, Neal? I can't remember.
I can't either.
His senior year, he fought that injury.
He had a shoulder injury.
He got hurt in that playoff football game, so he would it seemed like he would play like 5 games and he'd miss 2 games or something his senior year because that thing kept.
So many time shot this year that he just needed to dunk it like right there. It was a perfect example. Just get up there, boy.
He had the hops to do it.
I know, yeah.
I remember Bethel dunking in a game, but I don't remember if Ousley did or not.
I
think Bethel had a couple of them his senior year.
Bethel might have had a dunk at Belpre.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. It was at Belpre. Yep.
Yeah. And another loss. No, we didn't. My first time as a coach that we won at Belpre was my 7th year at Vinton County. It was when it was the team Eldridge talked about that went undefeated.
Yeah,
that was our first win at Belpre, and then we won there every year after that for the next couple, and then they left our league. But the first 7 times we played there, we lost. I mean, that was a heck of a tough place to play. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
I think you had an ankle injury, didn't you? Didn't you have to leave that game, Ryan, at Belpre early in the year? Didn't you twist your ankle?
Wellington. I only played like a little more than a quarter at home against Wellington.
So this is a big momentum shift right here before the half. Just to kind of Dixon stays with this one, gets a rebound and a putback, and then we come down. They come down, take a quick shot, and then Jordy Brooks hits a big 3 here, and that goes back to what we were talking about with sort of our bench guys being able to produce. Jordy, had the ability to do that. Jordy was one of those guys as a late bloomer. I remember he'd come to like open gym when he was 21. He'd be the best player in there, man. I mean, you guys remember that with him? Like a couple years after high school, he was something. And there's Powell taking a charge.
Yeah, Powell,
second charge of the game already for him.
Rewatching this game, Powell, he was obviously strong, but I had no idea his hands were that quick. I don't remember him being that quick, but there's several times throughout this game where he just gets a small hand in there and strips the ball loose. And it's just little things like that. He might not even get the steal, but it just breaks up the other team's momentum. And I think right there where they were going on that little run, he had a strip.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Greg, I mean, again, he's one of the Hall of Famers we talked about earlier at our school. But, I mean, you talk about a 3-sport athlete that got it done. I mean, he had – I mean, you could argue he's probably a top 5 baseball player maybe in the history of our school. He was an excellent football player. Of course, you guys were teammates in football, Chris.
Yep.
But and then like Coach Eldridge just said, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind guys like Greg Powell would have been a 2 or 3 year starter on a lot of basketball teams.
Oh, absolutely.
Throughout our league.
Yep.
And that was a thing, with Powell, and you can even argue usually that basketball was, out of the top 3 sports that they played, basketball was third for them, both of them.
Oh, yeah.
So we come out at halftime, 16-point lead. Try to
we
run
got
Viking
held.
there. Yeah.
We got held.
He may have. I mean, something happened. Either got held or his foot hit some super glue trying to back cut right there. So he just froze.
The point was it wasn't a turnover.
Well, let me go back and fix the record books. We don't want we don't want you to have one too many turnovers like 15 years after the fact or whatever here. But well, they come out, and this happens sometimes. You have a big lead at halftime, maybe just a little bit of a letdown. I mean,
Yeah.
they come out. I think they scored maybe the first couple times, jumped in their press a couple times, tried to make something happen. You kind of had to expect, at least I expected a team like Alexander. I mean, they were, like I said, they were playing for a share of the championship tonight. You expected them to obviously play with some pride and try to make a little bit of run. This was just one of those nights, as you're going to see here in the second half. Every time we needed an answer, we just got an answer. It was just one of those deals where even when they made a little run, even when we screwed up, it just seemed like somebody would hit a big shot. I can't remember. I think we ended up hitting 13 threes maybe on this night or something like that. Is that right? I can't remember.
There wasn't anyone that was going to beat us this night.
No, it just kind of snowballed on them once it got going. Like I said, I do think they score here. Maybe on I can't remember if it's a little jump shot.
I'm trying not to pick up my third.
Yeah.
Not trying too hard. Yeah, and it seemed like every once in a while you'd go through a lull on this team, and there would be someone that, like I said, sometimes it was Kyle or Chris, Oosley. Someone would have a spark to get us back in it and kind of, have that flow going again to where everything just felt effortless.
Yeah, I can remember stretches during the season, or still to this day, I can remember play here, a play there, where what you're talking about, a guy would make a key steal at the right time, or
Right.
I think right here, Chris Bethel, hits a big 3 for us here and kind of gets us back on track a little bit. And just so either making a big shot or making a big defensive play, this team just sort of had that ability. I can even remember like a game over at Meg's where we struggled in the first half, and I think you stole the inbounds pass to start the second half, Brian, and went down and made a layup. Just little things like that to sort of set the tone. This team here, they could beat you in a lot of different ways. They could beat you shooting a 3. They could beat you defensively. Certain nights they could beat you, getting to the hole. Very, very, very versatile team. People ask me all the time how this team and the 2017 team I coached compare. There you get a nice and one. I had to feel good after sitting a little bit in the second quarter. But I always say this. They're similar teams. I think the guards I had in 2017 were phenomenal. There's no doubt about that. I think offensively those guards were out of this world. I think the one thing this team in 04 had was length. I think that the defensive length would have been the one advantage this team would have had to use. Chris, you were part of both those teams. I mean, don't you think this team would have had to, Kent and Bethel and Oosley would have had to try to use that length against Tristan and Derek and Jake and some of those guys if those guys were somehow able to hop in a time machine and play each other?
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. That would definitely be our advantage. Not saying that they weren't tough, but we were definitely tough-nosed and had some length, and we could all jump. We were all athletic. So
The 2017 team would kill this team. Barstow would get him a lot.
Oh, shit. This is that Michael Jordan, LeBron James argument, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Kill would have been getting in foul trouble on purpose, so he didn't have to see Tristan Bartow anymore.
I figured you would pick the softer team, Eldridge.
We brought Eldridge on because to ease into some discussions,
Yeah.
Because Eldridge is slow to give you his honest opinion sometimes, you know. I mean,
Now, if Bartow was out here, I'd be telling him Kent would eat him alive.
Oh, I know.
Whoever it was, I'd be giving him a Bartow.
oh gosh.
I remember when what was his last name? Bob for Megs.
Jonathan Bob.
Jonathan Bob. Yep, I remember that halftime speech.
Oh
that I
gosh.
was
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah, we might want to.
We
might
won't
want to.
repeat it here.
Yeah.
I believe that was you and Josh Cecil that were taking that, wasn't it?
But yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, he's mellowed in his old age.
that's for sure. That's for sure.
So yeah, you can't tell that we're up 20 by watching us right now. We're still running sets and we're still trying to step on their throat.
But you know, you guys had that, and I think all great teams do, where you don't really play to the score. I mean, you play. You know, you're out there continuing to try to do what you're supposed to do. You really just value the process and go through it. I mean, there's Kyle with a nice offensive board and putback, and
Yeah, Bell and Kent out.
Eldridge is jumping up and down, clapping over there because his boy Kyle just got him 2.
It was really like Eldridge scored when Kyle scored.
That's why it's all one and the same.
When he sees a Duke move out of him, he's like, "There it is."
I taught him everything he knows.
Uh-huh.
Now check this offensive possession out right here. I noticed this watching the game last night. Brian Dixon's footwork is phenomenal. Look at this. It falls down right there. I mean, the thing about Brian was, and I know it wasn't from his junior high coaching with Eldridge and Royster down there, but no, but
you better
Brian,
watch it. Royster will fight you if you say that.
That's true, and whip me too.
60s, he still whip you.
But our Dixon's fundamentals, man. I mean, his footwork. There's another example here in just a few minutes that we'll bring up again. But I mean, he was just really fundamentally sound. You can just tell he played a lot of basketball.
Shooter.
Yeah.
His shot is still to this day is the best stroke that I remember. I mean, it was every time he let go of it, I thought it was going in.
So Ryan gets a couple free throws there, puts us back up, I think, maybe 22 at this point. We're actually playing a little bit of zone here. We didn't play a ton of zone on this team. And there's Kyle making a great defensive play. That's the thing about him, man. He was so quick defensively. Yeah. Of course, that 3 there by Bethel, I think that was probably, if the nail wasn't in the coffin, that was probably the one there. When he started filling it, they came in bunches, that's for sure. I mean, he actually kind of started slow in this game, and I think ended up with 18 in this game. But
yeah. All right, Jake blocked me too.
Oh, man, I was going to say.
There we go.
I won't rewind it.
He was real good about letting you
swatted
around him because he was obviously didn't have quick footwork, but you had to worry about those lanky arms coming over top of your head.
Yep.
Now, was there much being talked out there in this game? Because we don't know that as coaches, but
Was there
you
what?
got Jake out there?
I never let an opportunity go without talking some stuff to Jake.
We definitely did.
Well, you guys knew each other. I figured that was going on.
Well, then if back to our previous example, then if the 2017 and 2014 played, Tristan and Kent wouldn't get anything else done because those were the two biggest trash talkers I ever coached in my life.
Absolutely.
Those two guys be standing over on the side talking to each other the whole game. Playing 4-on-4.
Just nice and light. With your jersey up here so people can't see your mouth.
I mean, this team definitely had an edge. I mean, I think that, I think that's part of it. It's just, it's hard to play this game at the level you got to play it at without getting yourself to a certain point, where whatever motivates you, whether it's that guy across from you, whether it's just a pride thing. There's the footwork again by Dixon, man, just goes around the kid for lap. But again, I keep referencing just because it's current, this last dance that's been playing, but it's like you get yourself to a certain point competitively where you probably don't live that way every day, but when you're on the court, you have to get there. You have to get to that place.
It would be friendless, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's what I think a lot of people don't understand when they play, if they don't play a sport is, you know, it's not like you walk through Kroger this way. It's just that when you're on the court and you're competing, you got to kind of take yourself to that place sometimes, you know, to get yourself where you need to be. We talked a little bit about, you know, the unselfishness of this group. That this was the first time in my coaching career that I coached a team that had this level of talent on it. You know, let's face it, probably we had, 4 guys on this team, 4 or 5 guys average like 9 points or more. And let's be real honest, we probably had 3 or 4 guys in the right situation that could have been 20 points a game scorers for certain teams.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever you have that, there has to be sacrifice because, you know, you just know that, okay, I've got to give up a few shots a night to these other guys because we've got all this talent around us. This group was the unselfishness of this group was just really, really good. I mean, and you know, I think it started. I noticed that even with the coaches, I'll give Chris Eldridge some credit. You know, we brought Jimmy Nicholson on the staff this year, and Chris was the first one that said, "Hey, he can help us. You know, bring him on. You know, bring him on." Adding to this, they became good friends, and it was a great mix. Where a lot of guys might be like, "Oh, you know, we don't need somebody else on this staff, or we don't need." And I think that filtered over to you guys as players because I don't remember one time, even when things were going badly, kind of at the beginning of the season, I don't ever remember ever having chemistry issues on this team. Do you guys remember anything like that at all? Because I don't.
No, I don't at all. We just always stuck together. We knew we could win together. So.
Yeah. Well,
Yep. Go ahead, Ken.
We knew that everyone was going to have their night, and some nights, well, like tonight, Dixon being on fire, that meant less shots for me and Chris and a few others. But there were other games where someone else was feeling it, and that was part of the openness with this team. Where if someone, Bethel was really stroking it from deep, and he felt like we weren't getting him the ball enough, he would let us know that he's feeling it and we need to get him the ball more. And we didn't take offense to that because he was right. So let's feed him the ball. So there was that honesty there amongst us. So even if it wasn't selfishness, but even if it kind of slipped someone's mind that someone was really, really hot, then they would remind you.
But at the same time, like you said, a game later, they might be the guy giving it up to you when you're hot too. And it was just sort of that give and take with this group, you know.
The win was the only thing we were worried about.
Chris, you were getting ready to say something. Chris Eldridge, before Ryan said.
I was going to say, you was talking about Jimmy coming on board and stuff. I never had an ego when it came to coaching because I never thought I was that great at it. I was just kind of along for the ride for the most part. Enjoyed being around the guys. But I remember Bethel coming to you towards the end of the season and asking you, and he was our leading scorer this year. But he asked you if 2 guys could be player of the year in the league. And you said, no, unfortunately, you know, they won't do that. And he goes, well, I think Bethel and Kent both, or not Bethel, I think Dixon and Kent both deserve it. There's a guy our leading scorer, and he thinks 2 other people deserved it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's no doubt. I mean, that was just kind of the mindset of this team, man. I mean, you know, and like I said, it doesn't work without that. I mean, people think, well, if you have talent, you automatically win. And I can tell you, you have to have talent to win. There's no coach that's good enough to win without it. But I've seen plenty of teams with talent not win because they couldn't figure out a way to coexist and play together and get along. So there's more to it than just being good on paper. That's for sure.
Who's that right there that just stole that and hit that shot? Or, well, I guess they messed.
That was Bethel, yeah.
Didn't you see him go out to the 3-point line and then pull it?
Of course, he settled for an easy shot.
Why go for 2 when you can go for 3?
Line, shoot it.
Well, you know, we'll talk about Chris for a second because we haven't really talked about him yet. He's getting ready to he's getting ready to knock down another 3 here in about a trip or two. But 18 points a game on this team as our leading scorer, and he ended up being a player of the year the following year as a senior. Could have been, obviously, if it wasn't for the year that Ryan had this year, he would have been a front runner for player of the year again. And heck of a career, obviously a heck of a football career too. But the level of confidence that kid played with in terms of shooting the basketball, I don't know if you guys, obviously you remember the Miami Trace game at the Convo, the district semifinal game when it didn't look good for a minute late in that game. And he got it going from deep. And I mean, the thing about Chris was he didn't have to be hot to be real confident either. He had that confidence no matter what. But when he got it going, he could get it going big time.
Yep.
I remember where he was struggling, and I actually told you should probably take him out and let him set for a minute. And you always said, no, he'll get it going here soon. And he always did, Now,
one of my favorite stories, though, is I got to tell this story. My first year at Vinton County, I come to watch a junior high game. So I come,
8th grade.
Yeah. So Eldridge is coaching the 8th grade, Neal's group, and I come over there to watch a game, and they're not playing very good. They go down at halftime. Eldridge is just letting them have it in the locker room down there at halftime. I can hear a clipboard break. He breaks a clipboard down there. So they come back out, and of course, we're in that old Allensville, junior high gym. I'm sitting there on the stage, and Chris comes off the floor. He's missed 2 or 3 straight shots. Chris Bethel. He come there. There he is on cue, hitting a 3 here. But he comes off the floor and he looks at Eldridge and he says, "Man, I just can't hit anything tonight." Now you would think 8th grader coming over to his coach saying that the coach might offer a word of encouragement, right? Hey, hang in there, buddy.
Nope.
Eldridge hits him with, "That's obvious, Chris." He says, "That's why we're going to let Jordy Brooks shoot the ball now. Quit shooting the ball."
And his confidence didn't dwindle at all.
Oh, man. I thought.
Yeah. That's why those guys were so mentally tough by the time you got them, because I treated them like that when they were 7th and 8th grade.
Yeah.
Now, here, you'll love this one, Chris, because in all honesty, you worked a lot with these post guys. Check out this post move. I think it's on this possession. Yeah, by Kyle Seymour right here, man. This is absolutely textbook. Watch this.
Okay, let me see.
I mean, that's spin and take right there, man.
Yeah, he wouldn't have made that move for Chris Eldridge.
Well, obviously not. He'd have been an average turnaround jump shooter.
Yeah, exactly.
Hi there.
If it wasn't for the coaching. Ryan's got his family watching tonight. Look at that.
Yeah.
You got
Which is that, Ryan?
This is Olivia. Say hi.
Hey, Olivia.
Look at
He's
this.
got two. He's got a couple girls that actually like him.
Yeah.
Girls don't.
2.5. My wife likes me about half the days.
Did you just say you got a couple that don't, Chris? Is that what Eldridge just said? I got 2 that don't. Oh, man.
Wait till they're teenagers, Kent.
Huh?
Just wait till they're teenagers.
Oh, God. Don't put that out there.
Do
Do they all have to turn into teenagers?
Unfortunately, they do.
I'm going to lock them in the basement at 13 and not let them out until 24.
Now we're starting to kind of sub some guys out here a little bit. I know it's senior night, so eventually we take the seniors out one by one.
One fun thing about this group of seniors here, like we had Kent, Dixon, Seymour, and Nate Emler. Those were the only 4 seniors we had. When I coached those guys in 7th grade, that team was so deep. I cut kids, and I hated doing that because I remember 30 kids came out when Kent was in 7th grade, and there were
crazy.
20 of them. 20 of them were good. So
that is crazy. 30 kids came out for a 7th grade basketball team.
I had that all started with the elementary stuff. I remember playing MacArthur, Bob Grillo, and Kenny Wright. That competition, and that started way back in the day, and it kind of blew up from there.
Well, one of the first things I noticed when I got to Vinton County was just how good the youth program was. I mean, there were so many kids playing basketball, man. It was like, daggone. I mean, one district and all these kids playing, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool to see.
Yeah. Now, Neal's group, they were good too, but they weren't quite as deep as that. I didn't have to cut people who were real good then. And a lot of them, like Neal, how tall were you in junior high, Neal? About 5 foot if you were lucky?
Yeah, I wasn't very tall. No.
He was one of those late bloomers. And actually, Jake Hill, when I coached him, he wasn't very big. He was probably the same size as junior high, about 5'5". And heck, he grew to be 6'7".
Yeah.
Well, I can remember even, Chris, going into this year, you and I talked before the season, and I was like, we were unsure of what your role was going to be, right, on this team.
Yep.
And
I think we started out, I was going to be playing JV. Yeah.
Right. And you just sort of forced your way in there with just your defense. And, you know, I've said this on a couple other shows talking about other players. It's about like it's all about accepting your role, you know. I mean, that's really what – of course, Kyle's our first senior we take out, and there's Eldridge whispering sweet nothings in his ear as he goes to the bench there. But, you know –
Of course,
Kyle,
you're the first one you take out.
I probably heard about that from you for sure. But no, accepting your role. I mean, that goes. I tell players all the time, you know, like if a coach puts you in the game to do one thing, do that thing well.
Right.
Because like you said, Chris, you didn't come in the game thinking, well, I'm going to prove to Coach Combs that I can make the three or I can do this or I can do that. You just took what you were supposed to do and did it as well as anybody. And what players don't get sometimes is that's your maximum, or that's your way to get your maximum playing time, is doing that.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
Accepting that role and just doing that. Like you see it at the NBA level. You don't see guys like, you know, Kyle Korver taking it off the dribble. I mean, he's a shooter. That's what you do.
That's exactly right.
And I think when guys accept their role and figure out they can do that, that's big. Now, Nate comes in. I want to talk a little bit about Nate Emmert here in a second. He comes in. He misses that three. And then I think we come down. I think Ryan might come out of the game here. You know, you finish with 14 points, Ryan, 1 point above your average, even with a little bit of foul trouble. And player of the year in the league that year. If we had the audio on here, you know, they had the MVP chant going. So had to be a pretty special moment on senior night to get to come off the floor like that.
Yeah, I remember going to the old gym when I was real little, like 3rd, 4th grade, and watching Cottle and some of them play. And even back when they weren't winning championships, just thinking about what it would be like to be in, you know, that type of environment and being in front of all these people, my friends, family, stuff like that. It was great. In the back of our mind, though, we knew that our job wasn't finished.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt, because we had the tournament coming. So, Chris, you get a steal there, kind of cap off your incredible defense tonight the right way with a steal and a layup. And then now Dixon comes out. Of course, you know, he obviously had to feel pretty good after the show he put on.
Yeah.
And then we have, look at this. Do we have, it's either Jared Albright or a white chocolate sighting. We got 55 here running the point. I mean, the point guard in 55. I mean, that's serious right there. Look at him. Skinny freshman version of Albright right there.
Swimming in his jersey.
No doubt.
He was swimming in that thing.
Yeah, he was.
No doubt.
Yeah, but back to Nate. Clearly, Nate wasn't basketball wasn't his first sport. He had others.
Well, he was a really good athlete. If you remember, he was a good cross-country kid, and I'm telling you, he was a really solid baseball player. I mean, he was kind of, because of Oosley and Powell and some of those guys on that team, Brozak, I think, was in that group. I mean, he kind of flew under the radar, but he was a good baseball player.
Yeah, he was a solid second baseman. He could pitch too, and this was like I said, like you said before, like this team was just so stacked that it was hard to find playing time. And when Nate was put in the ball game, though, he was ready. He'll knock down a shot here in a minute if he didn't already. He gets a steal. I think he gets a foul drawn on him too. So he can make an impact when he was put into the game, but it was just such a stacked team.
He comes out. I think he comes down here on the next possession and he hits a three, which obviously, the crowd's going to get fired up when he comes off the bench and knocks one down. And then he ends up taking another one. And it actually got, after the game, one of Alexander's coaches at the time was all fired up, thought we ran it up. I don't know if you remember. Yeah, and so my story is that Nate Emmert was the one that got me yelled at. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't Bethel jacking up shots or Dixon. It was Nate Emmert's fault. You know what I mean? He came in there and got me yelled at by the other team. But in all honesty, and that coach later apologized for his heat of the moment or whatever. But they're Nate's hitting a three. But a kid like Nate comes in the game. As a coach, the last thing what I'm going to do is tell a kid like that, hey, you got to go in there on senior night and don't take a shot because we're winning by 35 points. I mean, it's not that's not fair to him. He comes to practice every day and works. And Nate's another kid. In all honesty, there would have been a lot of teams Nate would have got some playing time on. He just happened to be in a group that where we were pretty stacked at his position. But again, never what. The thing I always remember, of course, and Nate ended up teaching at our school for a while, so I was able to be friends with him, afterwards. But what a great teammate, just one of those guys that was, you can't say enough about the attitude that he brought every day.
Yeah, and you can't forget about practice either. I mean, obviously we have to practice against people, the starters.
Right.
So if we didn't have that constant competition in practice, we're not honing our skills anymore. We're just, going through the motions, so to speak. So these guys were huge in that aspect too.
Right. No doubt. I mean, I've said that all along. The best teams I've ever had, a lot of times had the best practices I ever had because your second team is good enough to play for a lot of people. And, that depth is that depth, even in practice, pans out. Did you tell me, Chris, when we started watching this game, Chris Neal, that almost every kid on the team scored? Is that what you told me?
Yep. There was only one person didn't score.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I won't point him out because he went on to have a pretty good career at Vinton County. So.
Oh, now you got me wondering who was it that didn't score? Was it Albright?
Albright, yeah.
All white chocolate didn't
White
score
chocolate
this
didn't
game.
score.
Hey, well, I'll tell you what. There's never a threat of that in open gym because he takes more shots than NJ Kite, which is hard to do. They compete for the most shots taken in an open gym. Now, when I played open gym, I passed all the time.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Just like Eldridge had good post moves.
There's Jordy Brooks knocking down a three. Maybe it's partly Jordy's fault I got yelled at. It wasn't just Nate Everett. Jordy got in on the action there.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like the Patriots, Bill Belichick will run the score up on you if you don't show up to play. We can't help it,
Yeah.
We kind of play like there's a shot clock sometimes.
This was definitely one of those nights for us for sure. But
now, was this through the week? This was not on a weekend, was it? Was this like a Tuesday?
Gosh, I'd have to look it up. I actually looked up the date. Of course, I'd have to get an old calendar out and look it up because I can't remember that.
I have the book out here.
What was the date? Like February 12th or something on this game?
It was the 17th of February. 17th. It was on a Tuesday.
It was on a Tuesday. Yeah. Because again, Chris, it was a makeup game. Remember, we had cancellations this year. Like there was a weird, they had the flu one time, I think, this year or something, and we canceled.
They canceled on us because they had sick kids.
Yeah, we had that whole weird thing happen, and then
we canceled on them basically because we wanted to get back at them for canceling on us.
But then it led to, like I said, it kind of led to a cool deal because we got to play this game.
I think we were both 8-1 in the league going into this game, and we finished 9-1, and they finished 8-2. Right?
Yeah, I think you're right because I think we had to win this game to win it. Pretty cool moment here after we shake hands, and I'd forgotten about this. To be honest with you, in this particular situation, Gene Seitz comes out. Gene was a diehard Vinton County fan, man. I mean, showed up to every game. Basketball, was here every night, and he was battling, I believe, cancer, if I remember correctly. And we end up giving him the game ball. Now, Gene passed away, and still to this day, there's a plaque on the front of the bleachers that our guys hit when they run out. So here we are 16 years later or whatever. And there's two now because we lost another great fan in Scott Fee last year. But there's two plaques that our guys, when we get announced for starting lineup, still go out and hit. And Gene's one of them. This is Gene right here, getting the game ball. I got to give Coach Royster credit for this. He was the one to sort of set this up for him. And it was a good moment. You know, I think it meant a lot to Gene. And I don't know if he would have realized then that 16 years later, people would still be tapping his plaque before a game. But yeah, so legacy sort of lives on a little bit. I'm going to let this run. There's about 8 minutes of film here of us cutting the net. I'm just going to let this thing run for a minute while we talk. But I want to get your guys' thoughts, I guess, first on the TVC championship. The first one at the time, it was the first one in 30 years. 1974 had been the last one. And we've been fortunate enough since then. You guys have paved the way for a few more of these, but at the time it was our first one. And then, so first, I guess, before we just let's get our thoughts on the TVC, kind of what it meant just to be the one to get our school over the hump.
It was kind of hard to know what to think because we'd never really seen it or felt it before. But it was absolutely amazing. Just have everyone cheer for us, and we know that we worked so hard. Practice. I love that Jared Albright steals the scissors and runs over there and starts cutting on the net, and he takes forever to cut it down. But it was amazing to be in the atmosphere and to play alongside people for years, leading up from junior high all the way up to high school, and finally reach that peak in your last year, your last shot at it. It was breathtaking just to be in the moment. And like I said, we knew that we weren't done yet, but just to kind of relax a little bit, take a little sigh of relief, it was great.
Yeah, Chris,
Yeah.
I mean, Chris, you got to experience this, and then Chris Neal, and then the next year being a part of the team that repeated. But talk a little bit about that league championship.
Yeah, so special. I mean, the community backs. I mean, even at that point, we're winning, and they're backing us, and we've always had good support from the community, and it's always feels great. And that's a very memorable night for me. I definitely remember getting up, being nervous to go cut that net. Not even about the game. It was just something I'll probably never forget. So,
And like Chris, go ahead, Ryan.
I think McNally gave us the most dull pair of scissors you can find for this net. I swear.
Hey, Phil was the AD. He was probably trying to save money, man. Like, I know how it is. Now that I'm the AD, I'm buying dull scissors. I'm not buying scissors. We got dull scissors too, but you got to save that money, man. But so Chris Eldridge, I mean, this had to be kind of cool for you from the standpoint of full circle, right? I mean, you got to coach these kids in junior high. You were the one that basically told me, hey, this was going to happen 4 years prior to this, and then now you get to be a part of it.
Yeah, I always felt in the back of my mind when I coached those guys in junior high, I couldn't wait to watch them in high school to see what they would do. Never dreamed that I'd be coaching them in high school, but kind of things turned over there, and you got the job, and me and you were pretty friendly, so I started helping you. But I actually thought we had a good chance the year before, if you remember, when we had like Keith Johnson and Josh Ruckle, Josh Cecil, some of those guys, Cole Singer. I thought we had a good chance to win the league that year. And it was really quite heartbreaking when we didn't win the league with those guys, but it almost made this even more sweet because this is the first time it had happened in 30 years. And you see all that support. Hey, when those guys are walking over there, you can see a young Mike Wagner with hair to the left. I forgot Wagner ever looked at yet, to tell you the truth.
Listen, you don't need to be talking about anybody's hair, okay? We've seen the video evidence here tonight.
I think there's only two of us here that can talk about hair, right, Neal?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, man. So then after this, though, I want to talk a little bit, too, about the tournament. We go in a tournament. We end up, I think, beating Athens in the sectional championship, if I remember correctly, and then go on and win a tight game against Miami Trace that, like I said, we had to kind of make a little run to do that, and then got to play Greenfield in the district finals and against a player that would eventually become one of the best players in the Southeast District and go on to play at Xavier and Dante Jackson at the time a freshman. I look back, obviously, being a part of that first team to make the district finals was awesome. I think we all probably, just being the competitors that we are, look back and think, man, we could have won that game. We definitely had our chances. And I've always said this, that team, had we won that game, who knows what happens? Because I think there was a chance to make it all the way to Columbus that year. I really do. I don't think, we've made it to the regionals, and Chris and Neal can tell you from coaching and Eldridge, we make it to that level, and sometimes you just run into teams that are like, geez, I mean, we've been beaten twice by the eventual state champion in the regionals. That particular year, had we been able to get through Greenfield McLean, who knows what would have happened? Because it was, I think we were probably good enough to at least stick our nose in and compete. It had to be pretty cool for sure, being that first team to make that deep tournament run.
Yeah, it was. It was kind of laying the groundwork for other teams, I guess, just to show that hard work, dedication, and most of all, teamwork can, lead to great things.
Yeah, Dover made it to the state that year, wasn't it?
Yep.
And
Go ahead, Chris. What was it?
Dover was the team that made it to the state D2 from the Southeast region that year, from the Convo.
Yeah, I think the game was like in the 40s or something, I remember. Like the game after us with Green, it was like in the 40s or something.
Well, yeah. We had went, if you remember, Chris, we got in a car and drove all the way to Steubenville to scout Dover. That's like a 4-hour trip or whatever from MacArthur.
We had a school over there, I think.
Yeah. But I think, and obviously they're very good. Dover's got a great program, but I just think it's one of those things, knowing what I know now after being in the tournament and playing at Chillicothe or playing in John Glenn the one year, I just know that there was at least a chance that year had we been able to get by Greenfield. But,
they didn't care what John Glenn or Eastmore Academy, those teams you ran in later in your career. They weren't.
I actually ended up talking to Dante years later. He would always say hi to me, and every time I saw him, and he actually told me, he said, I think if you guys would have beat us, you guys probably would have beat Dover that year. You guys probably had a better matchup against them.
That's what it is when you get in the tournament as matchups.
Well, if you remember that Greenfield game, Ousley got in some foul trouble. He was probably a kid that was our best matchup on Dante, just long, athletic. Yeah. And then we got hurt by some of their role players. If you look back on that Greenfield game, I think that guys not named Dante made 5 threes that night. You know what I mean? So when you give up 15 points on 5 shots to role players and you've already got to deal with Dante, that makes life a little tough, to overcome that. But nonetheless, what a great year it was. It was, and I'm gonna go ahead and pause this so we can get back on the screen and talk here. But what a definite, just fun, outstanding year to be a part of. And for me, this whole thing I started doing with these games here during this Corona layoff, I guess. And I did one with Tristan and Derek, and I did one with Andy Grillo, and now you guys. It's selfishly, it's just fun to get together and visit again and talk a little bit of basketball. And it's funny, you guys are like me, you still remember this stuff years later, not that I tell kids all the time, this isn't life and death. You're going to do bigger and better things. You get married, have kids, do whatever, and have bigger moments. But to say that it's just high school basketball doesn't mean that much. I don't buy that either. These are some lifelong memories and friendships that are made. So it really is important, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Even life lessons, you learn a lot from sports. I think that sometimes people take for granted, you learn teamwork to even translate into the workplace now. But yeah, memories have been made on this and stuff that you never forget. You'll never forget running out in that combo floor and that place being packed for that Greenfield McLean game.
Yeah. And and you're making lifelong friendships, even if you're not hanging out. I moved out of state, and I was back in Vinton County. I don't remember when it was, but I saw Chris Neal in the bank. I think it was the bank, and we just start talking because it's not. I mean, it's not weird or awkward. It's like, oh hi, yeah, we know each other.
I mean, even tonight, I haven't seen you in a few years, I imagine.
Years,
and it's still,
right?
Yeah, and still, it's just like that's no big deal. It's my buddy, it's my friend, and
Right.
all good.
Yep. Except Eldridge.
Yeah, we don't count him.
Yeah. Funny thing is, even as a coach, you make friends with these guys, and both these guys as adults I've hung out with. I went down to New Orleans for vacation one time, and me and my wife, she wasn't his wife yet, but she became his wife. We had a pretty good time. I've hung out with Neal at Athens a few times. We've had fun.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I still remember playing some of those poker games, Combs, with you and Eldridge.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was after I graduated and was in college and could legally drink.
I had to my poker career. We haven't played a lot of poker. Eldridge used to take all my money, man, in poker, so I had to quit.
You're really good at that. I haven't played in years.
I know. Yeah, Eldridge got all scientific at poker and started studying the game, and then I couldn't play with him anymore, man. It was
Once they start bringing out the little calculator and the little notepad.
Well, guys, hey, man, I appreciate this. This was fun. We're going to do a few more of these with some different guys, so make sure you maybe subscribe to that YouTube channel so you don't miss any, and you can see some of these. But we'll get this out, and I guess stay healthy, man. Best of luck to you guys. Hopefully we'll get together again soon.
Absolutely. Good talking to you guys.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. See you guys later.
All right, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.